train. Okay, we shall start the meeting. I call this meeting of the South San Francisco Youth Commission to order at 6:34 p.m. on January 3rd, 2022. That's crazy. We're in a new year. Okay, roll call. What is roll call? I forget.
I can call roll call. Commissioner Avila.
Here.
Commissioner Kamal. Commissioner Cyrus.
Here.
Commissioner Hailu.
Here.
Commissioner Ho.
Here.
Commissioner Hua.
Here.
Commissioner Ibasan.
Here.
Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Leong.
Here.
Commissioner Mariano. Commissioner Ray.
Which one?
Well, I guess Commissioner Giancarlo Ray.
Present.
Commissioner Monique Ray.
Present.
Commissioner Tu.
Here.
Commissioner Yoshida.
Here.
Thank you. Oh, I didn't call Commissioner Chair Mizzy,
Present.
Vice Chair Adriano,
Here.
and Secretary Ingrid Jimenez.
Present.
All right. Thank you, Ashley. So the next thing on the agenda, before we move on, agenda review. Does anyone have any additions or redactions or anything about the agenda? Sounds good. Approval of minutes from our December 3rd meeting. Oh, that was a meeting on the 3rd too. What a coincidence. Does anyone have any comments or anything about the minutes from last meeting or anything that they want to add or felt like wasn't there? Okay. We need to vote to do that. But I heard that we don't need to do a roll call vote for everything. So do I just say like use the raise your hand function if you approve the minutes, or how?
You can just ask for or approval. I guess someone can just a majority vote basically.
Okay. Does anyone have a motion to approve the minutes from the December 3rd meeting?
I motion to do that.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. Is there a second on the floor?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Do we need to vote? Or no? Great. We just approved our minutes. Were there any public comments in the email? Okay, and are there any members of the public here now? I don't see any. Okay, so no public comment. So now we have a presentation. Oh, I should have changed this in the agenda review. We have a presentation by Nell Sealander, who is our new Director of Economic and Community Development. The agenda was made before the official promotion, so no longer interim. So I give the floor to Nell.
Thanks, Ethan. Can I share my screen? I put together just a couple slides. I think I know what you guys want to chat about. So Ashley had briefed me a little bit. So let's see.
I'll be able to now. There you go.
Awesome. All right, so I think what I'm supposed to be talking about is sort of impact fees and the effect of waiving impact fees on the feasibility of housing development and affordable housing development in particular. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll just walk you through impact fees and sort of their impact on residential feasibility. So how do impact fees work? I don't know if everybody's familiar with impact fees, but they're sort of an animal of the state. They're a type of fee that's established using what's called a nexus study, and that's allowed by state statute. And so cities, including South San Francisco, often adopt impact fees to mitigate the impacts of new development. So all development in South City pays impact fees. It's some combination of traffic, parks and rec, public safety, library, affordable housing impact fees. Really, depending on the type of development, there is a suite of impact fees that a new development will pay. Some fees are also charged on like substantial remodels or expansion of facilities or even changes of use. So if an existing structure, say, went from industrial to office, that might trigger the payment of some impact fees because office is a more intensive use often than like warehousing or something like that. So the fees are pooled. They're kept in city funds, segregated from one another, and then they're used on qualified expenses, which are substantiated by this nexus study and outlined in the ordinance adopting the impact fee. So those can be things like parks or contributions to affordable housing or new library facilities. And because these are allowed by state law, every year, the city produces a report that summarizes the fees collected and how they've been spent in the past year and how we anticipate spending fees in future years. What I didn't note here, but what's important to know is that impact fees have a shelf life. So cities have to be really mindful of spending down their impact fees quickly. The state wants you to encumber, so just tie up and have a plan for your fees within 5 years of receiving them. So just something to know, you can't just sit on them. So impact fees in residential development. In the past several years, the city has twice studied the impact of impact fees on residential development. The first was in 2018 when our city council was considering introducing an inclusionary affordable housing ordinance. So this is the ordinance in our municipal code that requires some proportion of market rate rental housing and market rate for sale housing to be set aside as affordable. And so we considered a lot of things like reducing fees to allow for a higher affordable proportion in those market rate developments. And then again in 2020, City Council increased its impact fees. Mostly there was finance led a study of all of the city's impact fees with the exception of the commercial linkage fee because it was brand new. And the commercial linkage fee is for affordable housing, by the way. But in 2020, that study was really intended to introduce a new citywide traffic impact fee and transportation impact fee. And so in doing so, it looked at all the other impact fees that the city charges. And so we took to council proposals for all new fees, but also a feasibility analysis to show what is the impact of these recommended fees on the feasibility of development, right? Because if you set your fees so high that nobody can afford to build, then it doesn't matter if you have a fee because, you know, $20 per 0 square feet is 0 square feet, right? So we have to be really careful about setting our fees high enough to, you know, generate some revenue for us to spend on necessary infrastructure, but not so high that it precludes development. So the results of both of these analyses are super similar, almost identical, which is that residential development in South San Francisco just on its own is only marginally feasible. And what I mean by that is the cost to build only is barely justified by the profit derived from the rents or the sale of the units. And so when you see housing development happen in South San Francisco, there's usually some, extraneous circumstance that has made that specific development feasible. But by and large, you don't see just developers clamoring to build tons and tons of housing, affordable or market rate in South San Francisco. It may seem like it's happening, but trust me, it's not compared to other jurisdictions because the margins are really tight in South San Francisco. So the cost to build in South San Francisco is the same in Redwood City, but as you may all be aware, rents in Redwood City are substantially higher. Sale prices in Redwood City are substantially higher. So it's much more feasible to build there than it is in South San Francisco. So these analyses basically showed like we're pretty much pushing residential development to the limit in what it can afford to pay in terms of impact fees. But reducing or even eliminating the impact fees doesn't make residential development any more feasible, really. So, and I can share with Ashley to push out to the commission links to the reports from these various meetings. But basically, for a developer to want to build in South San Francisco, they need a return. This is residential. They need a return on cost of about 5%. That's like a return on their investment. And the way that our fees are set up right now, their return on cost is about 3.5%. So it's really these extraordinary developments. Either it's very large, so there's economies of scale, or it's a legacy property owner who's redeveloping, so they've already paid for the land 50 years ago. There's some extraneous circumstance that's allowing that development to move forward. In the downtown, a lot of the development has happened on formerly city-owned land or former redevelopment agency-owned land. So the city's been able to, control the price of the land to allow for that housing to happen. But if you remove all of the impact fees, and then when you do that, you're sacrificing your investment in your parks, you're sacrificing your investment in your library and your public safety facilities, the return on cost only increases to 3.75. So it's like a marginal change in your return on cost while reducing your impact fees entirely. And the reason for that is because the impact fees are actually a very small portion of your total development costs, right? So currently the fee burden on a multifamily, so like a high density multifamily unit. So this is like a building with 100 units in it, 100 rental units. The fee right now is about $27,000, $30,000 per door. And that's all of our fees combined. And the total development cost on that one unit is anywhere from $500,000 to $700,000. So it's a really small, percentage of that total development cost. And so waiving it doesn't change the overall feasibility of the project all that much. And then, of course, you're giving up all of the good that those fees can do. So when council looked at this in 2018 and seriously considered, should we waive fees in order to get more affordable housing, what council decided was, it's not going to substantially change anything. So why would we waive the fee, right? Why would we give up the benefit that these fees provide if it won't necessarily catalyze the development of more housing? So all of that said, we're doing it again. We're in the middle of some studies right now to look at our inclusionary housing ordinance and whether or not we could justify a higher inclusionary percentage. This was something that council asked us to do. It's also something we'd promised to do back in 2018 when the inclusionary ordinance was adopted. We'd said in 3 years, we'll take a look at it. So it's been 3 years, we're taking a look at it. And we're reviewing a few things. We're reviewing the financial feasibility of residential development under current conditions. Then we're going to look at it with a higher inclusionary requirement, so more than the 15% we require now, or maybe a deeper level of affordability. And then also part and parcel of this is evaluating concessions that the city could give to make that higher inclusionary requirement more financially feasible, because we don't want to raise our inclusionary requirement so high that development ceases to happen. Then we would get no units. And some of the concessions that we're evaluating are reductions in parking, fee reductions. We're looking at it again, even though we don't think the picture is going to change much. And then also greater density bonuses. So can we give a developer more market rate units in exchange for more affordable units? And that's all I've got for you, but happy to answer questions.
I actually have, I mean, I have a few, but I'll just ask one right now. Are impact fees the same as like when a developer pays for community benefits? Like, is that usually the same thing, or are those different?
I apologize, since I'm home. We're going to have the toddler join us, our intern over here. So no, impact fees are very different than like a community benefit payment or like a negotiated community benefit. And they're also different than in lieu fees. So just to make the world so complicated for developers, impact fees are sort of the simplest, right? You come in, you've got your development. These are the fees we charge no matter who you are. As long as your development fits this box, this is what you're being charged. And they have to be adopted in this very systematic way and justified legally in a very systematic way. An in lieu fee is what a developer might pay to get out of a physical requirement. So for example, in inclusionary housing ordinance, where we require a developer to build 15% affordable, there is also an in lieu fee. In lieu of providing the units, you pay us a fee per unit. So in the case of our inclusionary ordinance, our in lieu fee is like $310,000 per below market rate housing unit. So that's an in lieu fee. And that fee just needs to be reasonably associated with the physical benefit they would have otherwise built. And those they're a little bit more flexible. We don't report on them to the state. We just spend them for the purpose intended by the ordinance. Community benefits, negotiated community benefits, are typically things where there is a discretionary approval by council. So council has to take some special or legislative action to allow a development to happen. And so in exchange, the city will say, you're asking for something extraordinary. Why don't you give us something extraordinary? And that's the community benefit. And so those are, they're not required by statute. They're really just typically negotiated on a case-by-case basis when there is like something very exceptional requested of the city.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Nell?
Looks like Russell's got his hand up.
Oh, sorry, I should open the thing. Russell, ask your question.
Oh yeah, I have a question. Also, yeah, thanks for presenting now. I was just wondering if, just like from like the city council's perspective, when they've like decided to, I guess like sell or like lease off like public or city-owned land, right, or like former redevelopment land for like, I guess like majority like market rate like developments, like what are the, I guess like the goals or like the benefits that they're like looking for? Like, is it like the impact fees that they get? Like, is that the goal that's usually like when leasing, or is it like the percentage of affordable units that are promised like 10% or 15%? Like,
yeah, so you're going to test me now, but since I've been with the city and since our redevelopment agency was dissolved in 2012, I don't believe there's any city-owned land. So this is not redevelopment agency, but city-owned land that has been sold for majority market rate housing. So if you're taught, like, so for some examples, right? Our former redevelopment agency owned the land underneath Cadence, phase 1, and that's market rate. The dissolution of the redevelopment agency is governed by this insanely thick document called the Long Range Property Management Plan that had to be approved by the State Department of Finance, in addition to our countywide oversight board, our local oversight board, which is made up of all of the taxing entities that benefit from the property taxes. So mostly not us. So it's the school district, the community college district, the county. So that board of people and then the State Department of Finance had to agree on how we would sell all of the redevelopment agency properties. And the state and the oversight board are interested in the financial benefit of those properties because they're the ones giving up property taxes. So the dissolution of redevelopment agencies came about when the state was in an extreme financial crisis and they had to claw back a lot of money. And so that's when redevelopment agencies went around. And so long-range property management plans like ours were adopted and approved by the state in a time when the state was trying to really claw back a lot of funds and make sure that those properties that had been acquired over time were disposed of in a way that maximized the financial return to the various taxing entities that had given up property taxes for the life of the redevelopment agency. So it's just a little bit different because the city has less control over how those properties are disposed of because we're not the primary financial stakeholder in those deals. So on the redevelopment agency properties, all of the sales are dictated by that document, the Long Range Property Management Plan. If you just Google South San Francisco Long Range Property Management Plan, it'll pop right up. It says amended 2015 or approved 2015. That's the document that governs all of those properties. For city-owned properties, so that's a long way of getting to the city-owned properties where we like true blue control the property and can decide how it's used, and we being the city council. The goals are usually pretty clear. As of late, it's been affordable housing. I think increasingly we will be ground leasing properties, but in the past, due to sort of like extenuating circumstances, we have, sold properties. That's more of a case-by-case basis, but we do have a history of having, please don't touch that, Sally, of having ground leased properties. And so it's generally affordable housing. I think the one exception to that would be the city-owned property out at Oyster Point that's on the former landfill, which the city has agreed to sell, entered into a purchase and sale agreement with a hotel developer. And for that was a very calculated decision and financial decision, but also sort of like global vision for Oyster Point, which is that the property is really not suitable for housing. It's a landfill. It's extraordinarily expensive to build on. And you wouldn't build housing on that type of contaminated property. And so when the city was looking at the overall vision for that area, they wanted to make sure that there was a use out there complementing all of the office and R&D being built. And that was a upper scale hotel that would also derive tons of transient occupancy taxes for the city.
Mommy.
Anyway, so generally speaking, I would say increasingly it's affordable housing with some exceptions. And in the case of a property we have coming up, the Municipal Services Building that's being replaced by the new great campus that's being built across the street, council gave us pretty explicit direction at a study session a couple months ago to look at how best to sort of maximize the return for the city on that with regard to housing. Like, how can we maximize the number of units, maximize the investment to potentially use that as a catalyst for more housing development. So we'll be going back to council in February to talk about what are council's goals for that property. And then what should we do next with it? So that's definitely a good opportunity for folks to get involved if they, want to, have specific ideas for that property.
Thanks for the explanation.
Thanks for the question. It's a good question. The long-range property management plan really makes everything less fun because we have this guidebook we have to stick to. It's just a lot less flexibility, but it's definitely a document worth reading, and it's a good picture into like what the city looked like when our redevelopment agency was dissolved by the state. That'd be interesting.
I have like a question about redevelopment agencies, and I don't want you to have to like go into like the whole like history of them and like why they were dissolved, but because I think you kind of said it, but it's more of a clarification question. But so like, because I know the redevelopment agency or the former redevelopment agency like has a board that meets regularly, and so like who is the city, the school district, the community college district, and the county on that, or I think you kind of said that.
Yeah, so there, Sally, you can't move the pictures on the screen. They're just there. She wants to move all of your pictures around. She would like to scramble you. I'm sorry. Okay, so they're originally, when redevelopment agencies were dissolved, each former redevelopment agency had its own local oversight board. So on ours were representatives from the taxing entities directly impacted. So the city was represented by one council member, the community college district by this awesome woman, Barbara Christensen, the county, the school district. There were a couple others. I came on sort of right at the end as we were transitioning from our local oversight board to the countywide oversight board. So about 2 years ago, I want to say, 2.5 years ago, the state was like, okay, enough with this local oversight board. It's so many tiny boards and so many cities have fully dissolved their agency. They don't need it anymore. Let's consolidate to countywide oversight boards. So if you Google San Mateo County countywide oversight board, it'll show you the roster of who's on ours, but it's now more global. So it's a representative from special districts. The representative from special districts happens to be the head of the fire district in Menlo Park. Not super relevant to us, but he does represent a special district. There's a representative from the county. There's a representative from labor. So labor unions are represented there. All sorts of folks, a school district type, but it's not necessarily particular to South San Francisco, right? We're pretty lucky because one of our council members, Mark Adiego, has sat on the countywide oversight board. He is the city representative. So none of the other cities have a direct representative, but we do. So that's sort of how that has played out.
Mom, can I?
Thank you. I didn't know that.
They're generally a tough crowd. We've built a good relationship with the countywide oversight board, but it was definitely a change going from our local board that really knew what the city was after, had a real vested interest in our town, and then moving to a countywide one where we really had to educate them about what we've been up to. And it was a change of pace for sure. But now we have a good easy working relationship with them.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions?
I think Melissa's got a hand up.
I keep closing the part.
So thank you again for answering our questions and speaking to us. I think my question mostly stemmed since we were talking a little bit about how, I think you were mentioning how developers aren't necessarily rushing to build property in South City because it's barely feasible. I was actually wondering how, since we're also talking about affordable housing, how much the goals of the city and also the goals of developers are considered in developing affordable housing. Because I remember recently there was an affordable housing complex for senior citizens, and kind of what is the future direction for how we look at who might inhabit these affordable housing units and how much the wishes of the developers are being considered in South City's future plan.
Regarding affordable development. So there's affordable development. the pandemic was briefly awesome for affordable housing because it made market rate housing infeasible, right? Nobody was investing in high density multifamily urban infill housing development. Like those investors went away. And so like for example, 428, 432 Baden, which is a former redevelopment agency owned property that we'd agreed to sell to a market rate developer per the long range property management plan, came back and was like, we're never going to be able to build this. Like the market has dried up, but we have an affordable developer here. Wouldn't you like to substitute? And so the city, to make the oversight board whole, to not ask the oversight board to give up money, said the city will put in our money to buy the land. Right? So our affordable housing dollars to buy the land, you affordable developer, come over and build this. And so that was a way in which the market rate development community just said, we're out, but we have this good, developer here that has a good reputation, and it's great for the city because it's more affordable housing. In terms of like sort of the global view on affordable housing, we obviously have our regional housing needs allocation, the state requirement to build housing at every income level. It's not just affordable. And so we really look at opportunities where we control the land to try to maximize affordable units. Since it's nearly impossible for an affordable developer to come in and build affordable housing when they have to pay full market price for the land. It's just a really, really high bar to clear. Residential land in South San Francisco is worth about $5 million an acre right now, and will generally get you about 140 to 160 units. So it's pretty expensive to buy residential land right now. Not as expensive as R&D and office land, but very expensive. And so I think the city has a real interest in making sure that we maximize our affordable units on city-owned property or city-controlled property. In terms of like developer interest, we have good working relationships with most of the big affordable developers. So Bridge Housing, Mid-Penn, Eden, we talk with way too frequently. They know, who we are and who to reach, and if they have an interest in a project in town. And all of them are working on projects right now, right? Eden and Bridge are doing new development, but Mid-Penn is also actively reinvesting in the properties they own. So working with us closely on refinancing their debt with us. We often have debt on those properties, loans on those properties. So it's just a little bit of just trying to get as many folks building housing as possible with it, as much of it affordable as possible is sort of the goal, I think, right now. Yeah. I think Russell had another question.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering, because I know that like a lot of like, at least like from my understanding, like the affordable units in like majority market rate developments have like a time limit for like their affordability. Like just like
55 years. So it's pretty long, but it's not forever. The affordable developments also only have a 55-year restriction. It's pretty common. And so, but the reason why affordable units tend to remain affordable longer than 55 years is because when they're constantly refinancing, and every time they refinance their loans with the city or they resyndicate tax credits, low-income housing tax credits, then those affordability covenants extend, right? So they refinance to rehab the building, it extends them another 20 years, that keeps pushing that date out. So they're functionally affordable in some, approaching perpetuity. Whereas yes, the ones in market rate developments do expire after 55 years. We don't have any nearing the end of their useful life yet. But it is something that we're going to start talking about next year. We recently won a breakthrough grant from the San Francisco Foundation. And what's the partner agency? It's like the Bay, for, something for the future. I don't know. It's, some group of for-profit companies that pool money with the San Francisco Foundation and then dole it out. And so that will pay for 2 years of a fellow. that they provide us, and that fellow will be working on preservation policies. So what policies and programs can we put in place to make sure that units don't fall out of affordability? So yeah, we'll be talking about that a lot in the next year or two.
Okay. Wait, is it okay if I have a follow-up question?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, is that like 55 years or 65 years like a legal minimum, or is that like the average that is like negotiated?
That's a really interesting question. There are a lot of funding sources that require 55 years. And so it is sort of the default. Like if you invoke the state density bonus to build, which is a tool that developers use to build more market rate units in exchange for building affordable units, that requires a 55-year deed restriction. Tax credits, I think, are a shorter deed restriction, but lots of funding sources, including the cities, all require 55 years. So it's sort of the standard out there.
Okay. It's just that like, oh, sorry. It's just
It
that
used
like
to be shorter. I was just going to say it used to be shorter. So a great example is an old colleague of mine has an affordable unit in Redwood City, a for sale condominium that was affordable. And back in the day when she bought it, it only had a 30-year deed restriction. So she has outlived her deed restriction, which means she can sell her unit at market rate. So like that's a missed opportunity, but the standard has at least been getting longer.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say. Oh, sorry. That
Go ahead, Russell.
that a lot of units like have like like people do find out that their units or like the price that they're paying does expire, right? And like their rent like goes up like a lot, but I guess like the standard has like gone higher recently.
I guess one huge exception to this, and you just made me think of it, Russell, is properties that are only subsidized by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So HUD properties that have place-based Section 8 vouchers, which have a new name now, but that's like sort of what you call them, is that it's the Section 8 voucher that's not assigned to the individual, it's assigned to the development. Those have negotiated HAPs, Housing Authority. They've got a document that the developer, the owner of the property, negotiates directly with HUD. So the city didn't require it to be affordable. The city didn't participate in it financially. The only thing making it affordable is this relationship with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Those contracts come in like 5, 10, and 15-year increments. So it can be stressful on residents of those properties, and this has happened in South City in the past few years, where that contract between the owner of the property and HUD is about to expire. And so the owner is incentivized to play hardball with HUD to get a higher contract rent from HUD. So what they do is they start issuing notices to the residents. Oh, in a year, your rent's going to go up. Oh, in 6 months, your rent's going to go up. Oh, in 3 months, your rent's going to go up. Meanwhile, they have no intention, really, of dropping their HUD contract, but they're going to push it as far as possible so HUD gives them more money. It's a crazy beast of a situation, but one that it's just really outside of our control. So when this happened last time, what we did do was have a lot of meetings with the property owner, express to them how disappointed we were. They hadn't entered into the contract, followed up incessantly, talked to the county about how we could intervene through their housing authority, tried to like at least marshal political and policy will. But at the end of the day, it really is a private property owner negotiating directly with the federal government. So that you may have caught wind of some of those, because that does happen.
Something I just wanted to insert here, you guys, is, from the park and rec person, of course, is, there's a balance between what city property or even successor agency property is used for. I mean, affordable housing is like extremely important, but then there's also open space. So for example, if we took every successor agency parking lot that the city owns and build housing on it, that's awesome. But what about open space? You know, in that our standard, the city standard is 3 acres of open space per 1,000 residents. So theoretically, every time we add 1,000 residents to our city, we should be adding 3 acres of parkland. But I can tell you that's not going to be happening because we're out of land pretty much. Although every opportunity, you know, we try and add land. So I'm just saying, as you guys are thinking about, wouldn't it be great to take every single scrap of available land and build affordable housing on it? Just remember the balance between that and all the high density. People who live in these high density units, they have dogs and kids and pets, and you know, they need to be active and get outside as well. So there's always a bit of, not tension, but there's a bit of like back and forth between, you know, some folks on city staff saying, no, it should be a park. And then other staff who are responsible for housing saying, yeah, but we need housing. So that's why it's really good. It's a healthy kind of check and balance of everybody kind of looking out for what, you know, quality of life. And I would just throw out, for example, the library. So when they move out of the MSB, theoretically, that'll be affordable housing, which will be great, or some kind of a development there. But when the library is vacated, some folks are really hoping, and no promises, this is not a done deal, but if it could be, you know, a childcare building, we think that would be awesome. But that's in lieu of housing, right? So there's a lot of checks and balances of trying to figure out, you know, you can't just do one thing to the exclusion of everything else. Just throwing that out there for your consideration as you sort of think about why the city does what it does, and just long range planning for things.
Thank you, Sharon. I didn't know the that like ratio thing. I've like heard of it, but like I would love to see like the math of like, I don't know, like put everyone in like a massive tower and then the rest is just green space. Like, because like if you have to stick to the ratio,
well, you know, we don't have to stick to the ratio. That's a recommended standard, and you know, Nell talked about nexus studies. When we figure out how much people have to pay for park fees, how much developers have to pay, it's not just like some random number. It's the nexus is providing 3 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. But it's not like a law. It's not legally prescribed that. I mean, some cities provide 5 acres per 1,000, like depending on where, you know, how built out the community is and how wealthy they are. And some cities provide less, but, you know, and frankly, we're going to have to get creative. We know that. If we don't have the land, can we do pop-up parks? Can we activate parking lots? Can we, you know, what can we do in lieu of just flat out adding parkland? We just did a deal with BART where we're going to get access to all of that property adjacent to the BART trail. We don't own that land, and up to now they haven't let us do any public improvements on it. But the city worked a deal where we're going to make that into parkland, and that'll help us achieve more open space for folks without having to buy land. And that's the other thing, is like these little parking lots that we want to convert into parks, we have to buy them first, even though the city already bought them back in the day. Now we have to pay for them again. So that's part of the cost of putting a park in, is you have to purchase those sites, because like Nell said, the community college district and these folks want their money as well, because they get a share of that revenue. When we sell a piece of successor agency park, what do we get, 40 cents on the dollar? Something, or is it 16 cents? What percent does the city get on the sale of a successor agency parcel?
16 cents.
16%. Yeah. So people think, oh, the city's going to make all this money by selling this property. We don't really make that much money on it. I'd rather see us keep it and turn it into parks or affordable housing. But there's other things. There's always other issues, reasons, and factors. So just.
I'm looking at the time, and we've had Nell captive for almost 45 minutes now. But since the city council is gonna look at it in February, like housing again, right? And like we meet before them, since we meet the first Monday of February, maybe we can, would the commission be interested in having, like, talking just about housing for an agenda item next meeting, and like maybe we can like come up with a list of ideas to like plug to the council for their study session to consider?
There's also, we'll likely do a housing standing committee meeting on this. So we'll be talking about, there's, I'll put them in buckets for you so you can think of them this way. There's sort of 4 policy areas that we'll be discussing early this year. They're bundled 2 and 2. So the first 2 are, does the city, should, council asked us to look at, like, should the city own, build, operate, maintain, manage housing? Like, should we be housing developers, housing owners, housing operators? That's like a big question that we're going to work through with council. And that's directly related to the second policy issue, which is what do we do with the MSB? So those 2 are going together, probably housing standing committee later this month, and then council in February. And then the next tranche are the update to the inclusionary housing ordinance and an update to our commercial linkage fee, which is the affordable housing fee for commercial development. Those will go together, likely housing standing committee in February, council in like March, April. Mommy. So if that helps, you might attend the housing standing committee meeting to get like the full download on the staff report, because we'll give a big report, and then you'll get all the background, and then you'll still have an opportunity, because it seems like you meet at the beginning of the month. You'll have an opportunity between the housing standing committee in late January and the council meeting in mid-Feb to, anyway, so you might think of that as your February meeting, so that you're informed by the presentation at the housing standing committee.
And then do we know who's giving the presentation at the housing standing committee?
It'll probably be me and then Julie and Deanna from my team.
Okay. If you're available, or somebody from your team for our next meeting, would you be able to give the same, or probably like a more simplified presentation, because I assume it's like probably long, so then like we can discuss it?
Yes, I would encourage you to watch the.
Well, yeah, no, I will probably be watching it. Or
Yeah,
like maybe like if we have like
yeah.
the packet.
Yeah, and we can forward it to you and give like a brief overview and definitely do like an in-depth Q&A. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Or like it doesn't, I don't want to like, if you can't, sorry.
No, it's fine. We have a lot of night meetings the next 2 months, so I'm just trying to be realistic about schedule. But yeah, no, that should work. We can probably pull that off. Yeah. But I'm going to ask Ashley to harass me so I remember and get it on people's calendars.
Okay, thank you. So I saw nods to the previous question, but would we like to discuss those 4 things that Nell mentioned at the next? Okay, I see more nods. Okay. Well, thank you. Or does anyone have like a final question for Nell? Sorry, I should have said that before I started talking.
No, just thank you for presenting. It was really interesting.
Sure, no problem. Anytime.
Yeah, thank you. That was very interesting. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. Have a nice evening.
Thanks.
Say goodbye to the little one.
Yeah, will do. And please, don't hesitate if you're like noodling on a question, shoot me an email or call me. I know calling isn't like a thing people do anymore, but I'm generally reachable. So please do reach out. You don't have to wait till the next meeting when you invite me to join, but it's definitely worth just dropping me a line if you want. Cool.
Thank you, Nell.
Hi, guys.
On the promotion.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Take care.
All right. So that was interesting. The next item on the agenda is a presentation on the Cultures United by Mary Jo.
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Mary Jo. I'm one of the 3 management fellows, and I'll be presenting on Cultures United. So let me try to share my screen. Ashley, do you mind enabling participants?
Yeah, you should be able to right now.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll try to keep this brief. Let's see here. Oops, sorry, just trying to get into presentation. Okay, perfect. So Ashley just asked me if I could give a brief overview on Cultures United, which is going to be our new diversity initiative for the city. And we're also planning to have this be as a sort of general diversity initiative that other cities can participate in as well. So on the bottom here are some of the hashtags that we've created, and their Spanish is Culturas Unidas, and we're also looking into putting Cultures United into other languages as well, such as Tagalog, Mandarin, and all of the other languages spoken in our community. So we have three main goals for Cultures United. The first one being is to honor the communities and the residents of South San Francisco. The second is to educate, primarily by sharing different cultures and showcasing the different traditions that many different people have. And lastly, the third one is to engage. So we hope that residents of the community will be able to engage more deeply with not just the city, but also with each other as they learn more about their neighbors' own cultures and maybe even some of their own. So here's a general calendar. This is created judging from the history and heritage months that are considered national heritage months. So what we're doing for South San Francisco is we're looking at the primary communities within our city, and we created our own general calendar that's specific to South San Francisco. So the calendar year will be divided into 4 quarters, beginning this month actually with an official launch later this month. We'll be putting up a banner in South City Hall, and we're also going to share lawn signs and stickers with residents if they so choose to pick one up. So throughout the winter quarter, which will be our first quarter, we'll have Black History Month. We'll also have Women's History Month through the spring, and we'll just kind of go through our own calendar as we reach fall quarter, which will typically end in November with Native American Heritage Month. And so we also have different outreach approaches depending on which calendar month we're in. So we do have year-long approaches, such as giving out stickers as well as lawn signs for residents. However, we're also going to be tailoring some things depending on the month. So for example, we'll be posting on social media, such as a Did You Know post where we highlight different cultural leaders or community leaders and activists. And as well as for youth, we're partnering with Martin Elementary to create a lesson plan for 3rd and 5th grade based on cultural arts, language arts, as well as a South San Francisco specific history lesson. And we're also planning on working with different departments throughout the city, such as library and parks and rec, to hopefully be able to put on more programming. And for adults, our outreaches are pretty similar. We are also engaging in an annual outreach, such as the lawn signs and stickers. However, to specifically reach the adults in our community, we are putting in a new segment in our newsletter called the Resident Spotlight, where depending on the different cultural month that we're focusing on, we'll invite members of the community to either submit a short paragraph or a bio about themselves, about why their culture is important or why they feel that South San Francisco is very diverse. And we'll publish that according to the quarter newspaper. In addition to the Resident Spotlight, we also have recipe submissions where, again, we'll also be inviting community members to share their favorite recipes. And at the end of the year, we hope to compile all the recipes that we've received and turn it into a cookbook. Again, we'll be promoting on social media, and we hope to create a speaker series. Again, for many of the different outreach we have, planned. We still have to communicate and plan with the various different departments. So nothing's set in stone yet, but these are the sort of the things that to be expected coming from the city manager's department. Oh, and that's about it. So if you have any other questions, I'll be here to answer them. Or if you want to shoot me an email, you can do so as well.
Thank you, Mary Jo. I have like a non-comment, and then I have an actual comment. I'm half Maltese, and I had no idea that March is Maltese American Heritage Month. I'm gonna have to like tell my grandparents about that.
Yeah.
But my actual comment is I'm very excited for the community cookbook, because I'm a massive fan of like community cookbooks, and I love like finding really old ones in libraries and just like skimming them, because they're like there's like so much like being told by like the food that people in a place eat. I'm very excited for.
Okay, I'm glad.
Does anyone have anything for Mary Jo?
Oh, I see Sophia wrote in the chat, we're working with elementary, would we consider implementing to high school? So I think high school is something that we'd be looking into. We'd have to reach out to the school district again, and perhaps the principal at South City and El Camino, to kind of hear their take on if it's okay if we can partner and kind of create a lesson plan. So I have to say I'll get back to you on that. I'll see what we can do.
And then I see our esteemed vice chair had their hand up.
Oh, I was just wondering about the slide with the months on it, and like the corresponding like heritage like months. Each one had like a different color. I was just wondering if that like corresponded to something.
Oh no, that was just so it's like easier to see.
Oh, okay, all right.
If no one so, and this is just for clarification, this is all free for residents and is a nonprofit project for everyone. That's from Sophia.
Yeah, we're aiming to have this free for residents. So if you want to get a sticker or lawn sign or be able to engage in some of the different programming that we'll be offering throughout the year, we plan to keep this free.
Would the cookbook be sold, or like?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh. I don't want to ask you like logistics if you don't.
Oh no, it's okay. I'm pretty sure we mentioned that we'll be keeping it free.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
Oh yes, I see Aaron's hand up.
Oh, Melissa, you could go first. I already asked the question.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. I was actually wondering, like logistically, I think a lot of us are also like very interested in the project. What are some ways like we could get involved? And you're talking about like the cookbook, like what are some ways that we could like share our cultures, or moving forward, what are like some tangible steps that you are all looking for like in community involvement?
Are you speaking from more of like a youth perspective, or more like in general with kind of adults and like older adults in the community?
I think it's like both. I think I could tell like from a lot of like the responses, like we're all very excited. I think we all have different cultural backgrounds. So like as I guess like also from a youth perspective, like what are some ways that we can like share and kind of advance the project forward, or even showcase our cultures like
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that I'm currently working on is kind of a directory of the different cultural organizations within South City. And hopefully we'll be able to create kind of a community roundtable where different members of the community can get together and kind of discuss with different city staff what they'd like to see from the city, as well as kind of how different communities can better support one another. That'll probably be happening later throughout the year. And in terms for youth specific, I know different high schools can have different clubs and societies, like particularly like the different affinity groups. I'm also looking to see if maybe like if those groups would be interested in partnering. If you know of any groups, or if you perhaps participate in different like cultural dance workshops, or with perhaps putting on like a cooking class, as was mentioned in the comments, that's something that we're considering too.
Aaron, do you still have a question?
Oh, this is random, but do y'all know what the lawn signs will look like?
Oh, yes. So we have one design where it's based off of the City Hall banner, and it'll be, sorry, I don't have a proof with me right now. It's on the city's account. So, but yeah, it'll basically be just a banner with a puzzle piece heart with different graphics of different people to represent the different communities in South City.
Does anyone have any final questions or comments?
Oh, I do have to share. So I forgot to mention, I've already been in contact with some cultural groups, specifically APOP Hawaiian, whose coordinator told me that he's really interested in putting on a cultural workshop sometime in the summer. So again, if some of you are also interested in doing a cultural workshop just to educate some members of the community, feel free to reach out to me or send over folks that you think would be a good fit.
If no one has anything else, Mary Jo, just like keep us in the loop, because that's all super interesting. And like, if there's anything you ever want us to post, if you could send it, or like send it to Ashley to send it to us. And like, if ever you need our input, you're like more than welcome to like talk to us again about this.
Yeah, for sure. And if y'all have like any other ideas that you want to add on, feel free to reach out to me. My email, I'll put my email again in the chat. And yeah, I'll look forward to like reading different suggestions or further questions that y'all might have.
Okay, thank you, Mary Jo.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And then I believe our next presentation is about the Youth Poet Laureate competition.
That or
whatever we're calling
Youth Poet in Residence. You have to pay for that YPL title, which is really cool. It's a cool program. I'll tell you all about it. Hi, my name's Marty. I'm the Youth Services Librarian at the library. I mostly do teen programming, and I'm here to talk about some poetry program that Ashley and Ethan and Tamiko and Mary Jo and I have been talking about for April, but it will extend for the entire year. So we're talking about a residency or a Youth Poet Laureate. Those usually last for 1-year terms. And so I just want to, I guess, talk about does everybody know what the Youth Poet Laureate is, the National Youth Poet Laureate? A show of hands if anybody knows Amanda Gorman, has ever heard of Amanda Gorman. Yeah, Amanda Gorman was the first youth national poet. And that's an organization, or it's an initiative from Urban Word. And they choose a new poet laureate every year, and it comes from throughout a network of people who participate. That includes LA, Oakland, San Francisco, Chicago, Baltimore, Seattle, Portland. It's a huge organization. And we're talking about potentially partnering with Urban Word to have our own Youth Poet Laureate program for South San Francisco. So that means we would have a contest, and the winner would be announced in April at the Youth Art Show in partnership with Parks and Rec. They would have a 1-year term. And so the difference really between, so let me just give you a quick little context. So a Youth Poet Laureate is not a poetry contest. It's not a poetry slam. It measures 2 things: 1, poetry, and then 2, the individual's social impact within the community. So we're really looking for socially engaged individuals who want to give back to their community, who need a platform to elevate their voice. And we think that this would be a great program for our community. Daly City just recently started their own program. It's very cool. I can send you in the chat, I can send you the link for all this stuff. They're a huge organization. They started in New York. They partner with the Academy of American Poets, the Library of Congress, Poetry Foundation, and the National Endowment for the Arts. And again, they've presented at major stages like the White House and US Capitol. So by participating in this program, if we all think it's a great idea, this is one option of two that I just want to talk about. And this creates a great opportunity for not only being a national poet laureate, but the member within our community, one, reaches our local community, right? The state of California just created another state youth poet laureate. So then our potential candidate who serves our local community could then be elevated to the state and then possibly to the nation to be the voice for youth poet laureate of the nation. It's just like such a big opportunity. It comes with all of these networks for them to get their poetry seen in American Poetry, Poetry Foundation. It has workshops. But just by participating and being awarded, their poetry will be put into an anthology, which will get 10 copies and they can have. So they'll be a published author, which is an amazing opportunity as well. And let's see, so that's sort of one opportunity that we're thinking about. The other one is a youth poet resident, a youth in residency, which means that they would still have a 1-year term and they would be held out of the library. And with both of these programs, we would ask that the youth fulfill 4 presentations, and that can include speaking at Youth and Government Day. They could do a workshop for youth in the library. They can speak at city council meetings. All of these sort of things would be required of the winner. We've been awarded $500 from the Friends of the Library for the winner to pay them for their effort, right? We're asking them to commission poems and to participate in these workshops. So we want to recognize that. So there's money, prize money associated with it, 1-year term. Am I missing anything else, Ethan? Tomiko? Mary Jo? Anybody? Ashley, want to say anything about these ideas? And so ultimately, we just want to share this with you. So as we cultivate it more and it becomes out, we would be interested in, one, your feedback of what the submission process looks like. We want it to be as equitable as possible. We were asking for some youth committee or youth commission members to be judges. So we want youth to obviously choose the winner. You know, I want you all have a voice in selecting who will be the voice for our community. And, you know, if you want to do logistics or promo, I know there are a number of subcommittees, so I don't know how this commission really works out, but I just wanted to quickly present these 2 opportunities to you, a youth poet laureate and a youth in residence. Both come with different perks, and I could talk about it more in detail.
I did want to say that Ashley, Tomiko, Mary Jo, and Marty have put in a lot of time. We've had like a billion meetings about this for like many months, and they've put in a lot of like time and effort into like researching this. But I did want to say, didn't we picked a theme, right? It was like diversity.
Yeah, so we're going to do like culture and diversity.
Okay. And then that was to tie into the Culture United.
Yeah, so we wanted to kind of merge the 2 because they're both actually year-long campaigns. And yeah, so we did want to present this to you guys, or Marty wanted to present this, us all wanted to present this to you guys just so we can get some feedback. Like it's going to be for the youth and we want some youth voices. So if you guys have any other kind of ideas or like you think it'd be cool if they presented here or there or anything along those lines, we'd love to get some feedback from you guys.
Aaron, please.
I just want to say I really love this idea. I love the idea of like the residency, and I especially really love the idea of having them present at Youth and Government Day, as I don't know. I really love the idea of giving like young people a platform, especially for poetry and art. I guess my question would be is would the panel of judges be completely youth? Would they all be members of the youth community?
Great question. We're talking about including other members from the Arts Commission to participate, members of City Council, a teacher or so from one of the schools, but the majority in our conversations would be youth members. So it would be like 5-4. So tie-breaking votes, youth majority. I will say, we did have a poetry program for the library, and it was all about eco poetry, and it was actually with the youth poet laureate previously, Mira Dasgupta, and it was just a very well received, like well engaged. There was over 20 people, I believe, at that workshop talking about eco poetry. So it is definitely something that's interested in our community. And as a youth librarian, we do other programs throughout San Mateo County, like short story contests, which we've had 200, 300 participants last year. But this would be limited to our members of South San Francisco and those who either live or go to school in South San Francisco.
I think Sophia in the chat asked, is there a limit to the number of people who can participate? It's a contest, so as many people can participate and submit a poem. However, I'm not sure. Did we decide on 1 or 3 winners? Because it is, there's a prize. There's $500, but I think that's going to be divided. Is that right, Marty?
Right. If we do the residency, then we can divide it. If we're doing the Youth Poet Laureate, we can still talk out those logistics. I don't think we've determined anything definitively. 1 to 3 poems, but I will say that I personally would like to take everybody's poems who participated and upload it and have it archived as part of the library collection all the time. That's what we're here to do. We're here to, house youth content, raise voices. That's what the library's for. So that's what this starts with. Like if we have one winner, that's one thing, but we will still always have everybody's poems archived, with the library.
I see we have a lot of hands up, actually. I see Melissa's hand up first.
Yeah, I actually had like a 2-part question. So the first part was like talking about the selection process. Is the idea to have just the poem, or is there going to be like a speaking component or an interview? So I was kind of interested specifically on like the logistics behind that. And then my second question is like, for the people who aren't selected, is there like an idea of like perhaps making like a literary magazine and like collecting like the poems and like compiling them together into like a collection, so that maybe perhaps it's not just an archive, but it can also be passed around to like middle schoolers or like throughout South City schools. So I was just kind of wondering like the scope of the project, and yeah.
Right, for sure, I hear you. So just because you didn't win, I mean, the resident will do some of the workshops that we require. But a lot of those people can also we'll still ask them to do workshops themselves if they want to, or collectively discuss it. It's not just a winner take all, in my opinion. I think it's more about building community and building interest and fostering sort of a love for the arts for middle schoolers and elementary schoolers who are rising to middle school. And what was the first question? Sorry, there's 2 of them.
Like the selection process.
The selection process, yeah. So both of them are focused on social impact. So one will be assessed by the art of the poem, and then the second one will be like the work that they do within the community. So commitment to equity and inclusiveness, their activism, like their political activism, their organizing, their volunteer work, anything like that. So it's like, so a lot of poetry slams are always assessed just by poems. And that's not the best for everything. It's cool for one thing, but we're really looking for somebody who's outspoken and is committed to social justice work, inclusiveness, equity, that's what this program is for, and including that in the workshops and the poems that we ask them to deliver at Youth and Government Day, for instance.
Would that be like through an interview or like in the actual application, like in actual like written class?
Yeah, in the application there will be a part that says like your artist statement, to include that information. Yeah.
And then I see Jasmine's hand up.
Hi, yeah. I don't know if you mentioned this before. My internet was kind of choppy, sorry. But do you plan on like, I guess talking to the school board to mention these like opportunities and events within like schools, or is there like a different approach that like you're considering on spreading this information?
Yeah, we're gonna send it to schools. We'll send it to Peach Jar, all of the partners that we usually have with the schools, El Camino, Baden, South City, and also we want to make sure that we reach students who who are homeschooled, or that live outside the city but go to school in South City. So we want to make sure that it's a wider net. Yeah, we have a campaign idea, strategy. But if you have any contacts or any suggestions, I would love to hear them.
And then I see Monique's hand.
Oh, I was just gonna say that I really agree with the idea of like having like an archive or like kind of like a yearbook, I guess, where maybe instead of like printing copies for everyone, because that might be too costly, like we just have one that we keep in the library, so people can go and check it out. I think that'd be really cool. And also, I don't know if you already mentioned this, but I know you guys talked about like this person having to be committed to social justice and like mentioning that on their application. Maybe like the youth commission could like pose ideas on like a potential rubric. I don't know if you guys already have one. If so, that's fine. But like if not, like kind of like, could we get a better understanding of like what you'd like to see or what would be your like star candidate?
I believe Marty already made one, ? Or was working on one or something.
Very, very rough. But I would love I would love for all rubrics to be vetted by you all. There are things that we all miss when we're making sort of these contests, especially if we ask somebody to do it for 1 year and to reassess it all the time. If anybody's interested in that, I would love to talk more about your ideas and, especially like an example one. So having a program like this, we should always have sort of workshops before to make sure that people are prepared for the submission process and are aware of what it entails. And, what poem, would be best for them to submit. So it's like it could be a collaborative, sort of conversation of everybody sharing their poems, but then really breaking down what this sort of residency looks like and what the information is needed to submit to be an appealing candidate.
And then I see Sam's hand.
Hey, I think this is super cool and it gets me really excited. I love when like art is accessible to the youth of South City. I just have a quick question. In terms of poetry, like does it have to be all in English just because, we do come from like a majority like immigrant, a lot of the kids in South City are first generation. So like could they include, the language, like some parts of it being the language that they speak at home? Or also like a lot of South San Francisco High School has a big population of EL students. So could they submit like poems that are in their own language? Just wondering what the restrictions around that are, or if there are any.
I haven't thought about total restrictions. I think the blend of, both languages would be fantastic. I just read a poetry book recently and it just made it even that much better. But I don't think we've come up with a total rubric that says, not even 100%, but if you did it in your native language to ask for a translated copy just for reference, but I would love to include both of those things at all times, like in the blend of two languages working together is like such a poetic process, like, and it just looks very beautiful on the page. Like I'd be very interested in seeing those poems myself.
Yeah, another thing is maybe we could incorporate, like, make sure we have some bilingual judges on the panel.
Yeah, of course.
That was a fantastic question.
Yeah, that was an awesome question. This is why I'm here. Thank you all for your wonderful thoughts. And, anybody else have a question?
I did want to mention that we in our meetings we discussed like potentially partnering with the like county poet for World Poetry Day, which is in April, right? Or
April is National Poetry Month.
yeah, we talked about that. But you're asking us for like direction, right? On which one to pick, which option, or for like if we want to do the youth residency or the YPL.
Essentially, both of them. I don't want to get too in the weeds with this. Essentially, both of them will fulfill the same function. We'll still have one winner, which we'll call either Youth Poet Laureate or a Youth Poet in Residence. We'll still ask them to have 4 deliverables, which include speaking at City Council, Youth and Government Day, hosting a workshop at the library. There will be prize money associated with it, and they will serve for 1 year, providing guidance and at these speaking events. So they're both the same. One just creates a greater network, but it involves more paperwork on our end. I just want to let you know, so when we have this event in April and as we start planning and get your feedback, they're essentially the same program with 2 different names, depending on which one we choose. And that's more of a city government thing, which we'll talk about tomorrow when Ethan, Ashley, Mary Jo, and I discuss it. It's more of a legal, using the name Youth Poet Laureate. But a residence is like serves the same function, nothing is lost.
So wait, we'll decide that tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't think we need to vote on anything, but yeah, we were just looking for input, and then you can, I guess we can discuss tomorrow.
Well, obviously, I think this is a great idea, or I wouldn't have gone to all those meetings. But I'm glad that the commission had a lot of input. And does anyone have anything that they think would be good to include, or like questions for Marty?
Sorry, real quick, I see Sharon's message. And yes, of course, just online, we could do a bunch of posts of poetry, through social media throughout the months, the weeks of all the winners, participants, everything, to just make sure that we constantly have content and we're elevating those voices that we want to. That part is in the form that we've already drafted, that they agree to, that their poems appear online and in this art anthology that we're planning on making.
Okay, well, thank you, Marty. I'm sorry to keep you up late.
No, it's okay. The library's closing in 3 minutes. I have to get out before they turn the lights off.
You don't live at the library?
Only sometimes. Just kidding. I put my email in the chat. If anybody has any questions or thoughts about poetry or anything we can do, I would love to hear it. If anybody has any graphic design, if you like artwork and you want to make a cool logo or something, I'd love to see it. With that, I'll leave you all to your meeting. And
thank you
so much for having me. I really appreciate sharing this with you.
All right. I'm opening the tab. Okay, so moving on. And if anybody has any like last minute anything regarding that, if you can send it to either Marty or Ashley or myself, so we can talk about it tomorrow. Send it to us before tomorrow. The next item on the agenda, number 9, is about subcommittees. Oh, darn, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the meeting to fill out that Google form. But Ashley, in the last tranche of email, I think it was one email from Ashley, there was a Google form that we talked about at the last meeting regarding subcommittees. Did we have anything to say about it, or basically just fill out the Google form?
I think that we just wanted to vote on it. However, I was going to ask if we can delay this till the next meeting, just because only 7 people responded. Even if you don't want to join a subcommittee, if you guys could please fill out that form, that'd be great. Because I leave an option if you don't want to join one, you don't have to, but it would just be helpful to know. So I don't know if that's something you guys are open to, just pushing it back because only 7 people responded.
I'm okay with pushing it back. Does anyone else have another opinion, or perhaps agreeing, or perhaps a nod, a shake?
I will be honest, I myself have not filled out the form, so next week or next meeting sounds good.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so we'll push that back. We'll table that. So next item on the agenda, public comments. I don't see in person from the public, so no public comment. Oh, Russell, your hand is up. I'm sorry.
I just had a question for Ashley. For Ashley, no, not Ashley. Just in general, just if knowing where or what committees people are interested as of now, in terms of the 7 people who filled out the form, would that be useful for the other people who are still need to figure it out, or no?
It's up to you guys. I can definitely read out the results if that's something you guys want. It is public information, so I can. If not, I mean, it's up to you. I made you guys number them 1 to 4 just in case, because it can't be a majority. So it has to be less than a majority of the commission. In that situation, yeah. So then you would just get your second choice, and we'd just do it randomly. We would, yeah. So I don't know. Did you guys want me to read the results? And if I do, it would be kind of hard for me to number them out loud. So would it be okay if I said Ethan's 1 and 2 was this and this?
Or maybe if you just said oh, this committee has X many people and this committee has this many people.
If I can. Okay, so transformative justice and equity has, wait, hold on, sorry. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. I don't know if this is going to be helpful, but it's kind of hard for me to read out loud. So do you guys see this?
Yes.
So this is what I have. I mean, it's hard for me unless I go by 1, you know? 1. So for transformative justice, 2 people put it as their 2, and 3 people put it as their 2. Yeah, so 2 people put it as their 2, 3 people. Oh, wait. It's hard for me to read. I don't know if this is making sense to anyone.
It might be the first number is the other one, or like 2 people
put it as their 2.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
And then 2 people put it as their 3.
Okay, so 2 people put it as their 3. I don't know, it's the orange. Okay. 2 people put this as their 1. Actually, I don't know. Is this helpful to anyone? I'm not sure.
Maybe just I guess what people prioritize as their number 1 the most, maybe.
Yeah, it's just hard for me to write this down right now.
It's okay. I think we kind of got the gist of it. It's just a lot of people have chosen civic engagement so far as their number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So civic engagement, and then the lease is environment and sustainability. Is that helpful? But put what you would want as your, I don't know, should we take priority in those who have already filled out the application, like they should get their first and second choice? Or because I also give you guys the option how many committees you'd like to be in. Some people only want to be in one, some people only want to be in 3. So I don't know, we can do it randomly or we can do it first come, first serve. Up to you guys.
Well, I think if people only want to be in one subcommittee and then they put that option as the only one, then like hopefully they can get that and they can just get priority. And then the rest of us, like I put 3 for mine, I think, but I don't really mind. Like I think it's fine for most of us, but open to opinions.
I agree.
Okay, I can prioritize ones who put 1 subcommittee only. Okay. I will send out that link again in a follow-up email. So just remember to have that submitted by the next meeting, please.
Russell, do you still have a question? Oh, sorry. Oh, Monique, sorry, go.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. So yeah, we will just table that to Aaron.
This kind of has to do with this, but is sending emails to the rest of the group members, like, is that breaking Brown Act if what you're sending an email about isn't like political?
I don't think that's violating the Brown Act if it's not about Burke, correct? Or
Oh, well, it would just be random.
it was about
I guess maybe like things like, oh, if there's an event that I think that other members would be interested in attending, like, can I forward it to?
I
Like,
think that's okay.
oh, okay, all right.
I don't know, is Sharon still on? Sharon?
Yeah, that's fine. You just want to be super careful though, that you're not in any way, shape, or form trying to influence a decision that's going to come, or a matter that y'all are going to be considering. But let's say, hey, this, educational movie is showing that you guys might be interested. There's no problem with that.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, we'll just talk about that at the next meeting, or the subcommittees at the next meeting. Number 11. That's what I always, when it gets to the higher numbers, I always like totally forget what Roman numerals are. Items from staff.
Okay, just a quick reminder, please send in your stipend form. So we have the EFT and then the W-9. Also, I need you guys to send a void check to me too. Or if you're not comfortable, or you could send it to youth.commission@ssf.net. If you're not comfortable sending that to me, I can provide you an email to finance. But I'm just typically taking them and emailing it directly to them. So just remember to submit those or else you cannot get paid. I'm still waiting to hear when you guys are supposed to receive your first stipend, but I will keep you guys updated when I get that information. And then the second thing, I'm going to share my screen. This is through Star Vista. I think Sharon, you're the one who shared this with Miko and I. Volunteers needed, and I'm going to send you guys this in a separate email, but just quickly. January 27th from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. if you guys are interested in this. But yes, I will send you a follow-up email with the Google Doc, and then I could resend the forms, the W-9 and the EFT form, and then I'll send this flyer.
What's a void check?
I think it's just I think you can just go to the bank and ask them for it. I think it's because it provides your account and routing number. Sharon, am I right?
You guys are so funny. Do none of you guys have checking accounts? My kids don't even have a checking account.
I have a checking account, but I'm just like, if it's for the account number, I mean, the form already asked for like the routing and the account number.
For some reason, they want you to take a check out of your checkbook and write void on it and give them that. That's a voided check, just so they can verify that they have the right routing number, the right account number, blah, blah, blah. So it's just a check out of your checking account, write void across it and submit that.
I actually just opened a new checking account like 2 weeks ago. So like I kind of just went through this process. But if you need like a check to void, you usually don't need to request a full checkbook. You can just go to your bank and request like a single check, and like they can print it or mail it to you, and you can do that.
Yeah, that's
Because like
true.
no one writes checks. The guy at the bank was like, "Yeah, you don't need checks unless you need a voided check." Um,
All good.
but I did have to say, if you have any questions about that stuff for the like those papers, please ask like Ashley or Marie or somebody, because I actually I was like, what do I do? And I went this morning after I got coffee, and Marie like walked me through the papers. But feel free to ask. I see Russell's hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, like, just for like a lot of people here probably haven't like, including me, I guess, like haven't like filled out like these forms before, and like even like I know I've worked before, but it was still pretty hard. Like I did not know that I was the vendor that I was selling my services to the city, and like that's what you're supposed to put your name, and like that's kind of weird. But I mean that's like just how the city forms are, so just like I guess yeah, just like going off of like what Ethan was saying, just I don't know, maybe like it'll be helpful for people to like go into City Hall or like whenever Ashley or Marie or Tamiko or Sharon
Yeah,
for
feel free
you.
to come in,
Something like
or if you just need assistance, you can give me a call, or Marie.
Are there any more items from staff? Sorry.
I think Takai has her hand up.
Oh yeah. Oh, the guy.
Kind of similar to what Russell was saying. The one thing that I noticed from the form that I didn't know was the federal tax ID. I don't know if that's just a social that's being asked again.
I don't believe you need that because you're not a business. But that's what Marie said. Question mark. I don't know.
Okay, because with the line of thinking that Russell or the vendor part, because I did put my name on that. I wasn't exactly sure. I maybe should have clarified, but it sounds like we are the vendor. And so I placed my name on the vendor name.
I'm not exactly sure. I can get some more direction from finance and then hand that over to you guys.
Cool. Okay.
If you could do that, please.
Yeah, I'll send a follow-up email. Or Sharon, do you know?
Right, just keep in mind, this accounts payable is set up so that the city can pay, the printer and the people that we buy paper from. So that's why it says vendor. It's because they're paying you as if you were not an employee, but somebody who's providing a service. So yeah, you're the vendor. That's what you put in there. I don't think you have to provide a federal ID number. That's the whole point of paying you guys this way, is to not have to do that.
Do you still need to provide a social security number?
I will have to check on that. I don't think so.
Because it's on the paper. It says social or something number. But
I have not done this paperwork myself, so we'll find out and let you know.
Okay.
But I do know it should not prohibit anybody from getting paid. Everyone should be eligible. It's my understanding.
We can come back to this next meeting. But also, like, if you have questions and you want to turn it in ASAP, ask them. Were there other items from staff? No.
Sorry.
Okay. Items from the commission. Does anyone have anything about anything they would like to talk about or mention or plug?
Next meeting, or just whenever we can squeeze it in, we do something where we get into the nitty gritty of social media and like just making sure we can start posting and getting flyers and just things out there and kind of reviving or resuscitating our account, and just what Brown Act does it violate stuff, what we can and can't do.
Yes.
I know we talked about it briefly, but maybe just a brief touch over.
I believe Sharon or Ashley, do you know are they still working on a revamped social media policy? Because I know that was kind of a thing we were waiting on.
If Leslie was supposed to do that, she's now on maternity leave, so it is probably put on hold, is what I'm assuming.
Okay.
Right, but I think that we'll be able to provide some guidelines to the commission for what you can do and what you can't do. And we'll
Maybe you guys can plan out a few posts during the meeting and schedule them or something, or just create them just so, I don't know, everyone can input and then we can see, make sure it's all.
Okay. I don't think I have anything to say. I just found out today, because I was like looking it up, that the South City minimum wage went up to $15.80 an hour, which is more than I make in San Bruno, and I am upset, but that's okay. That's like a me problem. I didn't have anything to plug. Go to that meeting that Nell mentioned. I will like probably email her to, or I'll somehow like get the meeting info distributed. It's like obviously not required, but I mean, it's good to be informed. Oh, actually, I did mean to ask, or maybe this is a Sharon question. Do we have a date for the opening of the Carol Matsumoto Caltrain Plaza?
Sorry, I was just thinking about that. January 13th, and I can send some invites your way. So that'll be in the next meeting too. January 13th at 10 a.m., I believe.
I am not working.
Okay.
If you could please send that out.
just, Ethan, the thing to keep in mind is we're not dedicating the Matsumoto Plaza yet.
Okay.
Just the station improvements. The plaza has to get finished when the developer builds the housing, because if we had finished the plaza, they would have ruined it in building their building. So anyway, that's about a year away. So there won't be a Matsumoto Plaza yet.
But the pedestrian bridge will be open, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can send that out. I will be there.
And try to take Caltrain or carpool, because there is not very good parking on that corner.
And you cannot take the bus there yet. It's like a 5 to 10-ish minute walk from I think that's the 130. But yeah. Does anyone have anything else to plug or say? No, I see no hands or anything. Ashley, you unmuted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have anything else.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:15. Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you are having a nice winter break. Get boosted. I got boosted and I felt terrible the next day. I was exhausted. Enjoy preparing for Russell. Your hand is up.
Hi, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was just wondering if there's like a time to have it during the commission or not, or is it just like, what's it called? Like I guess like a bonding event, or like just like some type of thing where like we're in person. Like I couldn't make the last one, but I'm pretty sure you guys had like a good time, and just because like we're all like, on Zoom.
I want to do something in person. I think it was discussed, but then like in an official capacity, but then like December happened and like everyone like kind of forgot about it. And then now Omicron is happening, but I would be into doing something in person. We'll talk about this. We'll coordinate that offline. But no, I think that's a great idea.
I forgot about Omicron. Yeah, I should not forget about it.
It's okay. I want, maybe we can do some safe festivities. And I don't know, we can do like come if you're tested or something. So yeah, but I'm down, but we can coordinate that. I did see, sorry to call you out, Sam. I saw briefly when you had your camera on that you had, what are they called? Balloons of numbers. So I'm assuming that you just had a birthday. So happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was like 2 weeks ago I turned.
Oh, well, happy
18.
belated.
Thank you.
Okay, well, now I officially adjourn the meeting. Happy New Year. See you next month, or see you at the Caltrain thing.
See you guys.
I hope they have merch. Okay, good night.
Good night.